I'm not afraid to admit that I'm an active fan of the often dismissed literary genre of creepypasta. Or no sleep, if you want a less undignified name, or even amateur horror stories if you're a fan of actual words. Creepypasta often gets a bad rap due to its historically low standards, often laughable concepts, and perhaps most notoriously, a certain portion of the community which I will absolutely elaborate on later. But among every mountain of ridiculous, predictable, or downright terrible stories, there are ones that will profoundly affect you. Be it because they delve into the darkest recesses of the human imagination, or they are genuinely engaging pieces of fiction that explore themes that few other media types dare to. Or because they are so exceptional that they redefine your perspective on the purpose of horror and fiction as a whole. Of course, this does not determine which ones become famous, because, goddammit, why would it? No, the famous ones are typically the ones that have spooky pictures, e.g. Jeff the Killer, Smile Dog, and perhaps most infamously, Thin Fellow, Malnourished Bloke, Long, Craig, Slender Man. And naturally, about 6 years after people stopped giving a shit, Hollywood happened. And oh boy, did Hollywood happen hard. So let's reluctantly take a look at Slenderman, 2018. The movie opens like most, if not all, movies in the cryptid/creepypasta/urban legend supergenre, showing trees and, well, mostly trees, but also some typical small-town New England features, such as buildings, and characters outright saying that it's New England. Which is to be expected really, as New England is the capital of spooky stuff, TM. And that's not only due to the likes of Stephen King, Edgar Allan Poe, and my main man HP, it's also because a few hundred years ago, a bunch of absolute melons decided to kill off a bunch of quote-unquote witches in the name of God, or something like that. And now, in modern times, in a hilarious twist of fate, the place is known for witches. That might be the oldest and most hardcore example of the Streisand effect that I'm aware of. Anyway, it's done pretty well here. The atmosphere established is solid enough. You really do get small-town America vibes without delving into the predatory ukulele territory. And, you know, it's not exactly a high bar to set, but judging from the horrific reviews the film received, I was expecting it to fail even here. We're then introduced to our main characters who, in a break from tradition for horror movies, are a group of high school girls. And naturally, they end up in the classic scenario of underage drinking, boy talk, and perhaps most commonly for girls of their age,
invoking an eldritch forest deity.
Because, you know, it's solid patter. And they do this by watching the 4K remaster of the cursed VHS from The Ring, which, honestly, despite being a clear rip-off of some better movies, is done really well in Slenderman. Yeah, it lacks the esoteric charm of the VHS format. Instead, it opts for the fake deep web ARG feel with beautiful shots of genuinely unsettling locations. Well, actually, it's pretty much just trees, but they're beautifully shot trees. The two best parts of it are this haunting image of what's an eloquent way of saying weird-looking tree? And secondly, this aerial shot of the forest, because
that is Northern Lights cannabis indica.
But then they kind of ruin it by going into this mad anti-epileptic crusade that I'm going to filter so I don't accidentally kill anyone. But the main thing I don't really understand is, why do they have to summon Slenderman at all? Now, I understand that there's no one correct canon for Slenderman, so they're free to do what they want with him. But in almost all media I've consumed about him, he's almost always depicted as basically being a weird cryptid, like Bigfoot, Mothman, Skinwalkers, etc. You know, just a weird anomaly that melds the supernatural with the natural. But instead he's given an almost demon-like status here, which just seems odd to me. Giving people the ability to summon him gives those people a level of power that kinda defeats the purpose of the mysterious cosmic entity vibes. But that's just a nitpick and simply a matter of taste, so let's move on. Hey, you ever wondered what a melted human face looks like? Because it doesn't look like that. Let's start a counter. I will say that so far they have been remarkably reserved with jump scares, in that there haven't really been any. Whenever I see a poorly reviewed horror movie, I expect a ton of bad jump scares, or alternatively, a lack of any kind of horror whatsoever, and so far, I've been pleasantly surprised. Most of the horror in the first act comes from long, brooding shots of spooky trees, which is a factor in like 80% of horror movies, but it's actually for a good reason here. Take yourselves back to the year of our Lord 2012, Mr. S. Lenderman was at his peak popularity, and if you were to think of him, three things would come to mind. The original post on the Something Awful forums, Slender, the game, and Marble Hornets, the web series. Also, like, 500,000 terrible creepypastas, /fics, and... But let's purge all of that from our collective memories for now. And Slender was a game that was almost entirely slow, brooding exploration of a dark forest, so far, that's 1 point for accuracy. You can tell that I'm grasping at straws at this point when trees is an argument in the movie's favor. Outside of the forest scenes, however, the editing is very odd. There are several times in the film where they, seemingly randomly, slap the big old slow-mo button. While watching it, I thought they were doing it in some contrived attempt to add some drama to the scenes, but upon the credits rolling, I saw that the film barely squeezed past the 90-minute mark. And just like that, I lost my final dash of youthful optimism. It's not only that though, nothing is given any time to breathe. The pacing is really strange. From scene to scene, days may have passed and you wouldn't know. I think they were aware of this too, as on one of the more egregious cuts they add a friendly little 1 week later, and then they never do it again. It's genuinely like the script was just a series of major events punctuated by trees and awkward slow-mo. Some media can get away with obscure timelines, like The Shawshank Redemption, which uses that vagueness to highlight the monotony of prison life. And yes, I just compared Slender Man to The Shawshank Redemption, you know where the dislike button is. But there is no reason for this strange pacing here, it just feels rushed. Now, one thing that the movie was slated for was its acting, and yeah. Okay, I can see that. Each of the 4 main characters act in a totally different style. You've got naturalistic acting, teen drama acting, theater acting, and actual horror movie acting. But they all do well at their individual styles. It just so happens that the styles mix like Lego, Lincoln Logs, and industrial rebar. The movie was even nominated for a Razzie for Worst Supporting Actress, which is entirely unfair. Hell, I'd even say that some of the performances are genuinely great, especially the character played by Annalise Basso, who puts on a performance better than most other horror protagonists, and oh look, they get rid of her within the first 20 minutes. God damn it. So the issue here is not bad acting, it's terrible direction. That's a difference I struggled to notice until I had directed, acted in, or otherwise worked on many short films. I've been on the giving and receiving end of bad direction, so I've seen people underact, overact, or simply act in discord with other actors. And I'm an amateur. How the hell this level of direction was allowed on a Sony-made multi-million-dollar movie, I have no idea, and it makes me very cross. Ugh, anyway, back to things I kinda like. So you know how I mentioned that they were going for a deep web kind of vibe? They do that again, eventually, showing some spooky clips. But the internet has ruined me a little because, while these clips are playing, I can basically hear Chills narrating them. Number 12. A small creature that appears to be a boy is playing in the street with some kind of light device. Then a tall, mischievous figure appears, scaring the boy. Do you think that this video was real? I mean, come on, the videos even have the red circles. And they bring this internet focus even further, diving into the DMs where things take a noticeable quality turn. Downwards. Upon asking a mysterious person how the girls can get their friend back, the person responds with, "Depends what you're willing to give him." Which adds another point for accuracy, as that line represents all of the unsalvageably poor Slenderman creepypasta stories written by children. Good God, that line makes me squirm. An adult wrote that, with that capitalization. But don't worry, it gets worse. The following is a dramatic reading of an actual line written by an actual human that made it into an actual movie. He gets in your head, like a virus, like a computer virus that infects your hard drive. But instead of your hard drive, it's your brain. Jesus Christ. Let's just ignore it and move on. Now we move on to the single most perplexing element of Slenderman 2018. The abrupt jumps in quality. Because good lord, is the cinematography beautiful sometimes. Shots like this are genuinely reminiscent of Tarkovsky's Stalker, but then it's immediately contrasted with this horrible janky cut. Like seriously, I cannot stress how angry this cut makes me. Look at this post, and look at this tree. And watch what happens when we cut. They're still there. They're filming in the same place, just a few feet to the right and a few feet forward. For no reason. The camera has moved to a worse shot with no rhythm for no reason. I need to move on before I snap. At least once we get into the woods, things are good again. This is where the film feels most comfortable, which makes sense. Slenderman is a visual creature. Long shots of trees and tree-related miscellanea get us on edge. Slenderman is quite, what's the word? Thin? He's quite a thin man, so he's very easy to hide and sneak up on the viewer. In fact, they take this idea and run with it quite a few times, like when the girls were binge-watching Chill's videos, his shadow slowly crept up behind them. Or when they show him and oh, no, never mind, that's just bad CGI. Wait a minute, do you hear that? That means it's time for me to shoehorn in some Lovecraft into this mix. What, did you forget which channel this was? So, many things have been said to be the inspiration behind Slender Friend, like Stephen King, Mothman, comics, video games, and this guy, but Lovecraft is a particularly interesting one to me. Because one thing that most respectable Slenderman media shares is his motives. Those motives being, and in the script here I just wrote 3 question marks, I'm not sure how I was meant to describe that. While that may be a flimsy connection to cosmic horror, it does go further in the movie's script. One line says that any encounter with him ends in insanity or death. Plus, looking at him makes your brain rather unhappy, people become obsessed with serving him and making offerings towards him, and he also has tentacles. Because of course, he has to have tentacles. And given the fact that he tends to almost toy with his victims while maintaining a vaguely human shape. But the main reason I bring up Lovecraft, other than my contractual obligation, is because I was on the fence about the Lovecraft connection until... oh. Yeah, that'll do it. Well, back to frustrating things. The following scene... One of the girls is being stalked by Slenderman through her phone camera, and... it's spectacular. Genuinely. It's creatively shot, well edited, well acted, until the end. The lighting, audio, and even storytelling come together to create what is easily the best part of the movie, and actually one of the best scenes in modern Hollywood horror. So why does this scene annoy me? Because it's so much better than the rest of the film. If it was all this well made, it would be fantastic. Incredible, even. If this section was cut out and uploaded as a short film, it would be up there with classics like Lights Out. But it's not a short film, it's part of Slenderman. Good. At least it's followed up by a neat little nod at the original Something Awful post, but it's also followed up by this. Now, if I was to ask you what all teen audience horror movies had, what would you say? Cheap jump scares? Well, there's not been many of those. Pointless drama segments? Not a whole lot of that here either. Awkward romance scenes? Well, yeah. Buckle up. After a whole bunch of wacky death curses and summoning rituals and eldritch beasts and so on, the main character says,
"No, see, you guys are taking this thing way too far, and you know what I'm gonna do? Wash my hands of it."
And decides to embrace normality by awkwardly grappling with this grown man. And I understand that lots of horror movies use sex or romance scenes because fear and lust are the only 2 emotions you mortals can comprehend, but nothing about this movie, or Slenderman in general, screams sex. Unless you're a tentacle man. Which... fair enough. And the whole awkward affair... well, it ends with this. I'll be honest, folks, it's not the strongest scene in the movie. In fact, it's quite shit. But don't worry, it's not the last questionable horror scene. Yeah, the whole third act is pretty heavy on this stuff, and it really weighs down the rest of the movie, and that is really saying something. It devolves into a confusing mess of dream sequences, hallucinations, random plot reveals, and it's super obvious that they had no idea how to end the movie. I mean, if they were going for a madness vibe, they got it alright. They got it with this script. Oh god, that really hurt. There is some cool imagery in there, and the cinematography is pretty consistently good, but everything else is weak. Then the credits roll, and that's Slenderman. So to summarize, we're given bad direction, a wonky script, wasted actors, good cinematography, and bad CGI.
And this goes on and back and forth for 90 or so minutes until the movie just sort of ends.
That is brilliant!
I mean, it definitely had good moments. Some really good moments, actually. I mean, I would never call it a good movie, but did it deserve the absolute onslaught of hate that it received? Honestly, I don't think so. Now, hear me out, I'm a long-term horror movie fan, and I have seen dozens of movies that are comparable to Slenderman in terms of quality, your classic 4 out of 10 to 5 out of 10 type deals. Because horror is cheap and easy to produce while having a pretty big and reliable consumer base, there's a lot of these movies out there. So why did this one in particular get singled out when, as a complete package, it's little more than unremarkable? Well, here are some theories. And by theories I mean facts. Because it's crystal goddamn clear. Firstly, in 2014, 4 years prior to the movie's release, two 12-year-old girls lured their friend Peyton Leutner into a forest before stabbing her almost 20 times. The two girls did this due to a shared delusion that Slenderman was real and that somehow this would appease him. And that, my friends, is what we call in the industry a mood killer. Thankfully, Peyton had a level of strength and spirit that most people can only aspire to, so she was able to crawl her way to safety after being left for dead, and she survived. Now, I do believe that we shouldn't let media die due to the terrible acts of a very, very select few. However, Slenderman was being made at the same time that courts were sentencing the attackers. Read the goddamn room, Sony. How did anyone okay this? The second reason is again due to the time that it came out. Many years after Slenderman stopped being relevant. It just ended up feeling like an out-of-touch studio was attempting to appeal to an audience they don't understand, which is, well, that's actually exactly what happened. Huh. Thirdly, it's because Slenderman has a legacy. There are established expectations surrounding him and the stories he's portrayed in, and while the movie does do a pretty good job representing these, you're never going to be able to please everyone. But I'm actually kind of on the movie's side with this one, as Slenderman, well, Slenderman's open source. Erik Knudsen, the original creator, made him very vague, and the few things he has said are often in contrast with what the community at large thinks. There's a video linked in the description where he talks about this if you're interested. So all of these expectations are little more than headcanon. All that's really shown is that Slenderman is a mysterious, spooky, slender man. Therefore, I can officially say that I'm super excited for the 2028 release of Siren Head, because there are so many parallels here, dear lord. And the final reason for its bad reviews, it's a knockoff of Ring. Yeah, it's that simple. Some of you may still be interested in watching the movie, and I can't blame you, it is intriguing. But here are some better movies that may scratch that particular itch. Movies about creepy forests? The Ritual. Movie about teens getting wrapped up in dangerous business? Summer of '84. Exploration of an urban legend? The Blair Witch Project. Exploration of trauma on youngsters? The Dark. The Ring? The Ring. Cursed Media? Sinister. Cosmic Tormentors? Hellraiser. Corruption, Hell House LLC, and I could go on. There are many better movies than Slenderman. But hey, at least it's better than The Bye Bye Man, and Bedeviled, and Polaroid, and Truth or Dare, and Bird Box, and the new Blair Witch movie, and Actually, I need to stop listing movies before I get cancelled. Oh, hang on, what's this? This is IhazID. Interesting. What the fuck is this? This is, okay. Oh, fuck me, it's the teeps. Okay, good. I'm glad we got a teeps. God damn it, this is another one. Cthulhu 135 Chronicles of Orbis? Okay, I'll be honest, I don't know what this is. It's kind of daunting going forwards. Maybe I should turn back. Oh, motherfucker. Ernst the Ace. What a lovely chap, says John S. Lenderman. Well, good. I'll have to take his word for it.